Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Well, today it's moto diagnostics. We're getting into motorcycle season, and a customer dropped off his 1999 Triumph Trophy 1200. I've never worked on one of these before. It looks like a 4-cylinder, inline 4, water-cooled, carbureted, 38,000 miles on it. Let's read the customer complaint. It doesn't start. It's been running kind of crappy until it quit completely. He's suspecting a timing problem. Here we go. Hello, Triumph Trophy 1200. Does not start. Tries to, but backfired, so I stopped. It has new spark plugs. Thought they may be fouled since it's been running rich. Has some seafoam in it. Original key, gas cap. Not sure which direction the petcock is supposed to be. Gas removal. Sorry, forgot to charge the battery. So let's see what it does. Alright, so if we turn the key to on, we have some activity here. Let's try to crank it. Okay, let's find the battery and at least put a jump pack on it. Alright, so I got the battery charger hooked up to the alternator positive post and a clamp on the exhaust stud right there because the battery is really inconvenient to clamp onto. We're at 10 volts. Obviously that's not enough. So let's turn on the charger. I don't know if this battery is going to come back to life. Only accepting 1.8 amps. Well, if it doesn't take a charge, I can put in another battery. Let's see what it does anyways. Key on. There's the headlight. Starter does not engage. I'm wondering if you have to pull in the clutch. Okay, you do have to pull in the clutch. Alright, so let's let this thing charge up for a little bit, let it simmer. I'm going to figure out the fuel situation. The guy said it was running rich. I'll take off the air box, just make sure the air filter is not clogged, see what's going on with the carburetors. But I want to hear it crank first to see if it sounds okay when it's cranking. Alright, here's the petcock situation. So this knob is obviously broken or busted, and it doesn't turn the actual valve. So let's see. So this is the original position. If we go this way, that's a quarter turn. That's a quarter turn. Okay. So it's this way. It's still not obvious. So that's in the middle. That's probably on. You go all the way to the left. Is that reserve? That's on, and then down is prime. We can pop off a fuel hose to see if it works and go from there. Alright, so the petcock situation here is kind of messy. So we have two fuel feed lines. This one's kinked. And then on the back there's supposed to be a vacuum line for the automatic, for the on position when the bike is running. It's supposed to feed fuel. That's just capped off right there. This little hose right here. So I don't know what the heck's going on, but let's get the tank off and just twist the knob and see if it pours fuel in any of the positions or how it's supposed to work. Then make sure the carburetors are full of fuel. We can drain them out a little bit out of these drain ports and get this thing cranking. I might have to install a different battery because this one is not really wanting to take a charge. So in this position, gas is pouring out of both. I just took off one hose and it's just spraying everywhere. Let me turn the knob and see if that makes a difference. Let's go this way. That shut it off? Nope. Nope. What the heck is going on here? Well, if we go the other way. Nope. It's still spraying like crazy. Is there no shut off? How am I supposed to take the tank off? This is insanity. Well, I got the tank off, and the petcock is a mess because this is the little vacuum side, and there's no valve. So in any position, this thing's just going to pour gas regardless. See, it's just a hole torn in the diaphragm. So that's going to need to be fixed. But how do we plug that off so it just works on reserve? You know, with that, can we just plug that hole, and so we just use the prime function to turn the gas on, because this is going to be a mess for testing. I want to install the tank, obviously, but I don't want it leaking all the time. It's a real pain in the ass to take on and off with a broken petcock. So things are starting to make a little more sense. You know, the guy bought the bike last year. The petcock obviously has been rigged and you can't shut it off. That means there's gas always filling the carbs. You cannot shut it off. When the bike is off, there's gas just going into the carbs, and eventually that's they're gonna overflow because the needles aren't perfect. That's gonna fill the crankcase with gasoline. No wonder it was running pig rich. I'm wondering what the oil level is. So there's a little sight glass right here that looks completely full. You can't really tell where the oil level is. Maybe if we tip the bike on its side a little bit. I'm going to try. We're going to have to drain this sump out. There might be a gallon of gas in there. I don't know if that would have ruined the engine. We could try to spin it over. Let's see here. So I'm going to turn the key on. Let's just crank it. Okay, so it actually almost tried to fire. Let's let it charge up a little more and see if it'll fire up just without the gas tank, without the so the air cleaner's still here. That's probably soaked with gas. I mean, I'm sure it is. We could even remove the air box a little bit and just let it breathe. If this thing fires up, there's no timing problem. It's fuel problem because of the broken petcock. Alright, in our manual, Haynes manual, there's the sump plug. Then the oil filter is also at the bottom. I'm going to see if the Yamaha filter is compatible with this or not. Looks like a paper cartridge. And remember, it is antisocial and illegal to dump oil down the drain. Okay, and what's the capacity? Oil capacity right here, 1200 trophy, about 4 quarts. So let's drain it, see how much comes out. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot more than 4 quarts. Alright, here we go. Drain plug is loosened up. Place your bets now how much fluid is going to come out. Oh, it's peeing. Does it smell of gasoline? Guys, the oil fill is still completely full, so I'm gonna have to plug it and probably drain it again. Okay, we just dropped below the oil full mark there. This is gonna overflow. I know it. Let me cap that off before we overflow. Already way more than 4 quarts, obviously. Look at this mess. So I'm going to measure how much came out. Just put it into empty jugs. Yeah, of course it reeks of gasoline. Alright, got the oil filter out. This is the second pan that's draining. It is a KN 192 part number. Let me see if I can get one. If not, we'll put this one back in. It's not dirty, it's just, you know, swimming in gasoline. So we can reuse it. It's probably not that old. We just need some fresh oil in the crankcase. Alright, so I'm going to reuse this oil filter. And there are 2 washers on top of here. That's not correct. One washer is supposed to go on the spring here, and then the filter, then the second washer, according to the manual. Someone wasn't paying attention and did that. Let's make sure the O-ring is installed on the bolt, and maybe this model does not come with an O-ring on the bolt, but I think that should be good. Let me put this back in and we'll fill it up with some fresh oil. Alright, so recommended lubricants here. Oil viscosity. So we're 1200 Trophy. All other models fully synthetic 5W40 or 10W40. So I got some Rotella 5W40 full synthetic. This is what I use in some of my cars. Great oil. It's exactly 3.78 liters, which is what 4 quarts. That's what it calls for. So let's just put it in and try to fire this thing up. By the way, how much oil was in the sump? So 5 quarts plus 2.5, so 7.5 quarts. This thing was 3.5 quarts over full. Yep, that's almost a gallon of gasoline in the crankcase. The battery's been slowly charging here at 2 amps. Should be enough to crank it over. Let's see what happens. So the carbs are completely full of gas, no choke. I'm just going to crank it, let the engine breathe a little bit, see if it coughs and sputters. So ignition key on, clutch in, let's turn it over. Okay, let's let it simmer a little bit, let the battery recharge. We could take out the spark plugs. That should be pretty easy to do. See what they look like, maybe clean them off, give this thing a better chance. Well, this is slightly annoying. I don't even have the right socket to take out these spark plugs. There's like a big hex, but it's supposed to be a thin wall. I might have to look that up in the service manual. Let's make sure we're full on coolant, and you can't take the cap off without undoing the screw. Maybe you can. Yep, we're full on coolant. That's good. We're definitely full on oil. Okay. Now let me put it in and crank it over a couple more times. Alright, let's try again. No choke. Nope. Alright, spark plugs. So I found the factory toolkit in one of the saddlebags, and kind of adapted a long reach socket or an extension. So this will fit the spark plug. I just shoved a 1/2 inch extension in here, and that got a spark plug out. It was actually loose, but when we crank the engine over, I don't see a spark. That's not good. Let's try again. We saw one spark, but it's not consistent. So we got to chase a no spark situation now. There's a spark. Yep, so I can unscrew all the plugs by hand. Interesting. Let's take this one out. So this is the companions, 1 and 4, and 2 and 3. You can see it's a waste spark coil. 1 and 4 are in the same coil. I at least want to see if we can get a good spark going here. Plugs aren't fouled, they are wet with gas. It sounds, you know, cranking sounds normal, so they're not fouled out. So let me reconnect the leads here. Alright, let's try to crank it over and just look for spark on both 1 and 4. Nope. Nope. Let's take the other two out too. Alright, so I got plugs number 2 and 3 out. This is plug number, okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's focus on 2 and 3, see if those make a spark. Not really that consistent. I also noticed that the coils here are supposed to be symmetrical. So this is the power feed, and this is the control, and then this is the power feed, this is the control. So here it's correct. There's a little plus on the power feed. Here it's swapped around, I think. Or, no, actually it's not. That should be correct. Let me just check with a test light. Okay, test light to battery ground. Let's make sure the feed is good. Feed is good. And this will be the control side. So let's see if it pulses. Not really. We can put a scope on there. I don't see any sparking going on at all. Well, I'm looking at the wiring diagram here, and it looks like the plus of the coil is supposed to be connected to the control wires and the minus to the ignition. So if these are reversed, I don't know if they'll make a difference, but we should definitely put them on the right way, right? According to the wiring diagram, let's see if that made it spark or not. So here's the igniter that lives by the battery. So I'm just checking all the wiring colors, and the pickup coil lives behind this cover. So let's see. Nope, no difference. I don't see a single spark. I don't know what the red indicator means. I should look that up in the service manual, because there could be an alarm control unit where fitted, and the siren. I don't know if that's the horn. That's the regular horn. Because it was sparking a little bit before. Now it's not sparking at all. Alright, it's picoscope time. We're using all 4 channels at this igniter. So channel 1 is going to be coil number 1, the left coil control wire. Channel 2 is the right coil control wire. And then channels 3 and 4 are on the pickup coil signals. They're coming from here. So scope is rolling. So the two channels are lined up here, and the channels 3 and 4 are lined up right here. Let's turn the key on. Let's just see what happens. So ignition voltage is up. No spark, obviously. Let's see what the signals look like. Right here on the pickup coil, we see something. The green channel is almost nothing. You know, peak to peak. Delta is about 2.7 volts. That should be enough. But obviously the igniter is not doing anything, and the green channel isn't doing anything either. So, you know, what's the pattern here? 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. We're not seeing anything on the coil control. So what's a good signal for the pickup coil? And then what is, the igniter's not doing anything. We could try, let me save this waveform. We could try a bypass test maybe. Pull that signal up to, you know, up with a test light. See if we see any spark whatsoever. So I don't think the test light is going to do anything in terms of the bypass test. We don't hear any spark. The igniter's not responding. So it actually needs a real crank signal. So that's not going to work. But when we're cranking, shouldn't the signal be cleaner than this? What are these? What's all this noise? I don't think the igniter likes that. There's definitely 3, 2, 3, 2. You know, the pulses are there, but something's going on with this noise. Is it mechanically hitting something? We can pop that cover off and take a look. See what's going on. Well, that's a problem. Bingo. Look at this. This thing's all loose. That snapped off. So it's probably hitting the wire there. Yep. Okay, let me take a picture of this for the owner. It's going to need a new crank sensor too, and a new petcock kit. Alright, so this poor crank sensor, the plastic is just completely destroyed, and the trigger wheel is hitting these wires. So my question is the resistance, it's still, let's see, 560 ohms. You know, the sensor is falling apart mechanically, but electrically, pickup coil resistance, 530 ohms, this thing should still work if we can glue it back together. Obviously we're going to replace it. I don't know where to even source a replacement sensor, but I think if we degrease it and pop this back in here, so the holder will actually hold it tight, and put this cap back on, might be able to salvage this thing and make this bike run. I just want to make sure it runs before ordering any parts. Okay, so the best temporary solution that I can come up with is just to zip tie this crank sensor back together. So 2 zip ties. I had to trim this one so it's not pushing this metal bracket away. Trim the ends, and it looks like it's pretty solid. On the mount, it's not going to move. So all we need to do now is set the air gap to factory spec with that reluctor wheel. And that's right here, 0.6 to 0.8 millimeters. Pickup coil air gap. This bike just might run today, no parts required. Alright, well here's our zip-tied crank sensor. I set the gap to 0.6 millimeters, tighten down the bolts. It seems to be happy. Let me just trim off this last zip tie. Like that. And let's see if the cover, well, we can actually spin the engine over and see if we get good spark. Let's hook up the oscilloscope before we button this back up. Make sure there's no interference. Alright, here we go. So this is our original capture. Let's roll the scope. Turn the key on. crank it. Still no spark. Let's take a look at the pattern. So much cleaner waveform. This is not what I expected. I expected this thing to start sparking the coils. About 3 volts peak to peak. Why is there no spark? So I'm starting to run out of ideas here. Here's the igniter unit. There's the part number 1290072. Triumph Jill, made in England. I even put it in the freezer. No change. I depinned the wire going to, it could go to an alarm module if equipped. No change, no spark. Not a single spark. But before, we had a few sparks. So what changed? We fixed the crankshaft position sensor. The waveform is nice now. It's a little higher amplitude. This thing's dead in the water. We're ready to call this igniter because that part is not cheap. This igniter retails for over $400. Found one on eBay, a used one, for $300. Yeah, that's definitely the right piece. Maybe it's upgraded. One has 2 holes, the other one doesn't, but it's the same part number. I have to talk to the customer and tell them what we've done so far and what we have to replace. Rebuild the petcock, new crankshaft position sensor, and new igniter. This is crazy. This thing's turning into a money pit.